Welcome to Democracy-ish. I'm Danielle Moody.
And I'm the colored Wajah.
Oh shit. Oh dear God. So we just gonna start out like that. So apparently, it is the 1950s in MAGA land. Since the seismic shift in our political landscape, with Joe Biden announcing that he was not going to be seeking reelection and
Wait, Danielle, was
emphatically.
that I just realized we haven't recorded in a week. Felt like 2 years ago. Oh my god.
No, it
Wow.
literally is just a few days ago
Wow.
that Joe Biden emphatically endorsed his vice president of the United States, Kamala Harris, to be the Democratic nominee. And like nothing I've ever seen before,
Mm,
Waj, like what we've been talking about for years now, that Democrats fell in line
mm.
at a speed that I didn't think was possible for them to do, which is why we're so out of sorts with what day it is, because it feels like things change so quickly. And now here we are. She has the
Yeah.
delegates, she has the nominations, and guess what? Fox News and Republicans have racism.
Racism. The funny thing is we'll talk about that organization mobilization in a little bit because I think it's so important for listeners, especially to know how and why people of color, especially black voters on the DL, came together and rallied behind Kamala Harris, which is why we're at where we're at right now, because they avoided, pardon my language, a lot of fuckery that was afoot behind the scenes from some white donors and establishment dams. We'll talk about that in a second, but never underestimate, ever, 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 the capacity for Republicans to unleash the bullhorn of racism to the point where Mike
Mm,
Johnson, I mean, you have to laugh. Look, if you don't laugh, you cry. Mike
yeah.
Johnson, the leader of the House, openly is telling his party, hey, please don't be racist. And his party responded, no. And to the point where, as of this recording in the morning, this is Wednesday morning, folks, when we record the video of this, on Fox, this actually happened in the year
I cannot
2024.
believe, and no, we're gonna play the clip of it, but we can't believe that it happened.
Here's the clip. So Danielle, we've been talking to each other for 2 years, but I've never asked you this. Were you ever part of a colored sorority?
No, I wasn't. One, I wasn't born pre 1950, and two, I never pledged. But holy shit!
Like, wow.
Wow.
And they've been going backward and then saying, "Oh, I didn't mean that. I didn't say that. I think I heard that. What did you hear?"
I heard exactly that, and what was even more embarrassing for them, not for us, but for them, is that a black man that was sitting on the couch,
Mm,
that is a
mm.
part of their a part of that show. And I said, wow, to be so just unaware, so just disconnected from your own community, to let that quote unquote slide. But I have to say to people that the racism and the vitriol that is just revving up, right, is nothing that any black woman, black people, people of color should be concerned with, because Roland Martin said it so well on Joy Reid's show this week when he said, you know what? White people, we actually don't give a damn what you think about us.
Mm.
We're not all Clarence Thomas clamoring for your attention and for your acceptance. And so this is more revealing, right, about them, and shows who they are, what they are thinking, their visions are, than it says anything about us. Just like when folks say that the history of slavery, that is white American history, that is not black history. Black history is about how we rose above, how we persevered, but white history is about barbarism, rape, and brutality.
I when I saw that clip, I think I retweeted "masks off," right? Because it's good that people see it in a way. I've always liked my racism and bigotry out in the open. I want to smell it. I want to taste it. I want to put my teeth into it. I want to just say, ah, mwah, that was a delicious meal. No dog whistles. It's out in the open. There's no subtlety whatsoever, and I want people to know what they say about all of us behind
Mhm.
closed doors. And if this, if they say colored sorority on live television on Fox, imagine what they say behind closed doors. And it is a really truly revealing mask off moment because we said this on Mary Trump's show, Nerd Avengers. They did not plot, they did not strategize at
Mhm.
all that Joe Biden would make the sacrifice. I mean, we're now like 4 days out of the announcement that Kamala Harris is, well, she's now the duly elected incumbent, and inshallah, she'll be the presidential candidate for the Democrats. But they literally are apoplectic because they're like, "Well, Biden old, Biden old, he old," and like they have no pivot point, and what they pivoted it to: racism and
Mhm.
sexism. That's it.
Mhm.
They have nothing else. To the point where even when Mike Johnson said what he said, they still couldn't stop. And I just for us, I have a little list that I compiled. I'm sure this list will
Please.
grow. Here's a clip where it was on Newsmax, where two white men are arguing whether or not they can even imagine Kamala Harris negotiating with tough world leaders. Because a former district attorney,
Yep.
attorney general, a
Yep.
senator, and vice president, the last thing a district attorney ever does is, negotiate and prosecute. I mean, how will she know? She's just a simple caveman woman. She's a colored lady who wears heels and she wears pearls. How can women negotiate with tough leaders, Danielle? You tell me, as a woman.
I it's so wild, right? The way that their racist minds work. That the audacity, I mean, you show that clip. I mean, we have JD Vance saying that Kamala Harris hasn't done anything but taken a government check, dog
Uh,
whistle, welfare queen.
that's right.
And I'm just like, bitch, she's had more jobs than you. Like, what have you done other than write a book?
A
Right?
shitty
Like,
book.
honestly, what, like, you have done nothing. And so I'm like, the fact is that I want to remind folks of a quote that Toni Morrison once said, that the very serious function of racism is distraction,
Mm,
because it keeps you in the place of explaining over and over again your reason for being, right? And so anytime that we are finding ourselves having to react to the racist vitriol that we know is coming. We know what they say behind closed doors because we know what they say out in the open, on mic, on national television, on stages around this country, is that we have to be busy doing the work
that's right.
of organizing, which we'll talk about, of the way to get our democracy and the vice president over the finish line in November. Because if we take time out every single day to go through the 60,000 racist, sexist, misogynistic things that are coming out of these people's mouths, we won't get to the business of saving our democracy because we'll be too busy doing battle with these fucking
And
idiots.
perfect setup. And we didn't plan this before, because I'm so glad you said that, because back in the day, we would be responding to this clip. And for those who have not seen it, literally the representative from Wyoming says, quote, "Intellectually, she's just really kind of the bottom of the barrel. I think she was a, wait for it, get ready to drink, DEI hire." I think that's what we're seeing. And I just don't think that they have anybody else. And she's not the only one who said DEI hire. And DEI hire is doing a lot of work for CRT. And CRT is doing a lot of work for woke. And woke is doing a lot of work for the N word and other racist slurs used against people of color. This is exactly what you were talking about, Danielle. The intellectual inferiority of the
Mm-hmm.
black,
Mm-hmm.
the intellectual inferiority of the coloreds. They're not like us. They're not advanced. They have no culture. Prove to us, oh heathen, that
Mm-hmm.
you are worthy of existing within our civilizational capacity. Prove to us that you're moderate. Prove to us that you're not savage. Prove to us that you lifted your knuckles off the floor. Prove to us that you have art. Prove to us that you have a Shakespeare. Where is your Gandhi? Where is your Mandela? Where is your Thomas Jefferson? And so many people get caught up in
Mm-hmm.
trying to win this losing argument, that we get distracted from the work that's ahead of us. And I think this generation, though, is doing something really interesting. They're like, no, we're not going to waste our time. We're going to move forward. And by the way, you're idiots, and we're going to mock you and laugh at you. And speaking about the work, and you saw this happen, I was of the impression, Danielle, and let me explain. A lot of people are saying, "Ha ha, told you so," and you were wrong. And I said, "Yeah, I was wrong." The reason why I wanted the Biden Harris ticket, I always said Biden Harris. I even went on Democracy Now. I said I have no fidelity to personality. I just want to be a strategic voter who protects democracy. I want the Biden Harris ticket. If anything happens to Biden, or if he chooses to drop out, there is, wait for it, folks, VP Kamala Harris. She is right there. 81 million people voted for her. The reason why I was skeptical of the last 3 weeks because of the circular firing squad is because I thought
Hmm.
Democrats were the manner in which they did it. Folks, let's be honest, I'm not the only one who's pissed off about this. I was at the AFT meeting convention in Wisconsin with 4,000 folks, a lot of people of color, a lot of organizers. They don't like the way this happened, number one. Number two, what I kept hearing was, oh, there'll be a mini primary, there'll be a blitz primary, there'll be an open primary. And even a Congresswoman Lofgren said that, and we were sitting there going, wait, 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 what do you mean mini primary, open primary? Translation, Danielle, we're gonna try to get Kamala the colored off the
Yeah.
ticket and get our magic white on. And so two great things happened, which surprised me in a really pleasant way, Danielle. Number one, Joe Biden makes his announcement. 4 minutes later, boom, he endorses Kamala Harris. He
Hmm.
endorses Kamala Harris, which I thought was a genius strategic move. Number two, black women, they were paying attention to this, folks. They're like, we got this. So what did black women and then the next day black men do, Danielle?
I mean, it's just extraordinary, and it just bears repeating that I said, and I've said this before, that if you want the path to freedom, follow Black women because they know the way. And so, what we saw within
Mm.
hours of the stunning announcement from President Biden, was Jotaka Edie, who is the CEO of We Win with Black Women, and organized a Zoom call, right? The Zoom call initially only had capacity for 1,000 people. 1,000 people. Had to then call the president of Zoom to say, we need more space, and ended up with 44,000 Black women on the line that raised over $1 million within 3 hours,
But Danielle, you know
right?
what's so interesting about that? It would have been even more. It's just that the Zoom servers were tapped out.
Right. We're tapped out. We're tapped out. And so, because of Joteka Edie, the brilliant minds of Black women that got on the horn, that did what Black women have been doing since the beginning of time, sending messages, organizing, linking arms, and saying, she is ours.
Mm.
And we are going to make sure that we do everything that we can from this moment until election day to get this done. So then what happens? The very next day, Roland Martin, right? Former CNN commentator, host of his own network, gets on the horn with Bakari Sellers and other Black male thought leaders and says, we're doing a call as well. They gathered, we win with Black men. How many came on? Over 50,000. They also raised over $1 million. So now what has happened? This extraordinary fucking domino effect
Mm.
that we have never seen. There has been a Southeast Asian women call, an AAPI call. There is a white women call that is being organized by Shannon Watts from On Demand, and the founder of Every Town, right? Who is organizing and has been, since the announcement, on social media telling white women
Yeah.
that we are going to do better this fucking time around, and it starts now, and went on a thread about all the ways that white women can activate. Now there is a call that is happening with gay Black men and queer Black men
Mm.
that is being organized by Alfonso David, Rashad Robinson of Color of Change, Emil Wilbekin. There is a queer call that is coming. I mean, these folks following the lead of We Win with Black Women in this week, Watch, because it hasn't even been a
No, it
week
was less than a
since
week.
the announcement. It hasn't been a week since the change. That do you see how people are hitting the ground running? And oh, by the way, I just an anecdote that I want to share with you and with the listeners. My mother, folks know that I'm from Long Island, Suffolk County, Eastern Long Island, and which has become Trumpville.
Mhm.
That is not how I grew up. It was always working and middle class folks and heavy Democrats. But over the last 20 years has become very Republican and became very MAGA. My mom calls me yesterday excited and she says, "Oh my God, Danielle, I have something to tell you." One of her students at her yoga studio, their husband is the head of the Democratic Party of Long Island, of Suffolk County.
Mm.
And he said that people are driving to their office, dropping off check after check
Wow.
after check, that there have been so many. And because they're not used to this, because most of this happens online, that they had to call the White House and say, "What do we do? Where do we send the checks? Where, like, what's the physical location?" Because we've never experienced this before. And one of the things I find really interesting is that I think, because why do you think that people are writing checks as opposed to using their credit cards and online? I think that a lot of white women are like, let me put in my own money,
Mm.
let it not be documented in the way that it is immediately registered online, shows up on the credit card statement. I think
On the DL.
that I think that it's happening on the DL, and I thought that that was really
No, no,
interesting, but
you
exciting.
know, it's all anecdotal, but I mean, I had this anecdote of the day that Kamala Harris made the announcement. This was 5 years ago on Sunday, and my neighbor is a black woman. She came over and she said, you know, they're on vacation, and she landed and she goes, "Listen, what's going to happen?" And you know, she always asked me about politics, and I gave her my analysis. But she says, "All I know is my phone has blown up, and all of us black women are rallying, and I got like all these texts and WhatsApps, and we're all talking about how we're gonna go door to door if necessary, and we're talking about our neighborhood, and there's some interesting MAGA folks here. We're like, we and she was like, we don't care." So that was an anecdote, and then an hour later, I saw this, and I'm like, okay, that's not a one-off. This type of energy is contagious, and you know, we've also had Latina women already do it
Yes.
early on in the week. And there is one question though I want to ask you about, because you mentioned white women, and you know, we're witnessing the backlash in some places. There was a focus group. CNN had one of like all white women, and you know they repeated some of the claims about Kamala Harris not being smart enough. You know, I'm not too worried about black women. I'm not too worried about Latina women. I'm not too worried about Asian women. There's a lot of Asian aunties also, because let's not forget, folks, Kamala is also Indian. Her mama was Indian. I am still worried about white women. And we're all listen. Let's just keep it real. The one group that we're really worried about doing the right thing is white folks. Not all white folks. Some of our best friends are white folks. I know many of the listeners are white folks. We're not talking about you. The numbers, folks, is in 2016, a slight majority of white women voted for Donald Trump. In
Mhm.
2020, 4 years after his disastrous presidency, a larger number of white women voted for
Mhm.
Donald Trump. And this is part and parcel why I think so many black folks and people of color were so hesitant to dump Biden, because they're strategic voters. And it's not that they wouldn't rally behind Kamala Harris. The strategic thinking was, will white people rally behind a black Indian woman, a daughter of immigrants? And so here we
Mhm.
are, Danielle. Do you think, with the full scale assault on women's rights, and it's overturning Roe with Dobbs,
Mhm.
it's attacking the abortion pill, it's attacking IVF, it's attacking birth control, it's
Mhm.
going after marriage equality, and it's just the obscene misogyny. I mean, there's so many examples that if we just gave the examples, it'd be most of our show. But JD Vance, the vice president, the donut, the evil care bear, the man who has less charisma than lettuce, the worst
But more eyeliner than a hairband from the
the
80s.
worst VP pick. I love it. My tweet is still fresh. As soon as it was announced, literally calling women who don't have children childless cat ladies,
Mhm.
and going out and saying zero exceptions for rape and abortion,
Mhm.
even when, excuse
Mhm.
me, rape and incest. and also saying no fault divorce. So if you're in an abusive relationship, you're stuck
Mhm.
and you need the court's permission. That's JD Vance. With all of this, Danielle, do you think white women finally, a majority of them, folks, I'm not trying to, stereotype, just looking at the numbers, looking at history, do you think a majority of them will finally do the right thing and rally behind Kamala?
Yes, I do. I
Mm,
actually do because and this is what I'll say. I'll say that I'm not going to say that we're going to get 50% or 60%, but I know that we're going to get more white women than we had in 2020 on our side. I think that a lot has happened over all of the things that you have just named have happened. But I have also never seen white women be openly organized in the way that they are organizing right now.
mm,
I have never seen that happen. Have you ever seen a title of a call or thing that says calling white women? I have not. And so I think that there are really thoughtful, powerful white women right now that are like, you're making us look bad. And we are not going to do the same shit again that we did in 2020 and that happened in 2016. And so I believe that the abortion issue, birth control issue, no fault divorce issue, that these white women are looking for the first time and saying that their daughters and their granddaughters are going to have a worse life and less rights than they had. We didn't have that in 2020.
no.
We didn't have that in 2016, even though Hillary Clinton fucking warned us and said that if you elect Donald Trump, he's going to place two Supreme Court justices and Roe will be on the line. People said, fingers in the air, la, 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 can't hear you because I don't like you, Hillary Clinton. And that's how we ended up in this place. So I think that there is a lot of remorse,
Mm.
electoral remorse for a lot of white women because they believe the lies that Republican men, their husbands, have been telling them. Don't you worry, honey. Don't you worry your sweet little head. Everything will be okay. And guess what? It's not okay.
It was something that you said about women on the DL voting for Kamala. I remember in 2020, right after it was announced that Biden won, we were vacationing. So I just up at a beach, and a lot of that population that was there is it was like kind of a red area, and some of these men, just overhearing them, we were out at a restaurant, were just so pissed and like, I can't believe my wife voted for that Biden. Oh, it feels like such a betrayal. I think this time around, especially with the obscene misogyny, the outward, that Mike Johnson should have said, "Can you stop being racist and misogynist?" He hasn't said that yet because all of the attacks on Kamala have been racist and misogynistic, and I have seen it be completely off-putting to an entire generation of women. They're like, "This is ugly. This
Hmm.
is all you have." And the more and more they keep attacking women and attacking women's rights, I think a lot of these folks, Daniel, I'm with you. I've said this for the past 2 years. We've been saying on Democracy-ish that this country and the Republican Party has underestimated the righteous rage of women. And I am hoping, look, you're much more optimistic than me. Even if of a small majority of white women, if I'm talking about 52% vote Kamala, that's all we'll need. If just like 45% of white people vote for Kamala and we get the numbers that we can from people of color, that's enough. Why, folks? Because a majority of white voters have not gone Democrat since LBJ. I wonder
Right.
why. Oh, yeah, the civil rights movement. So we just need, Danielle, like 45% of white voters to do the right thing. And I feel there's 4 months left. I feel like the Republican Party is stuck in its racism. It's stuck in its misogyny. They've put themselves in a corner. Nobody puts baby in the corner. JD Vance and Trump did. Baby's in that racist, misogynistic corner. And I don't think they can pivot. And there's one other group that I have to bring up because it's just so delicious that is really pissed off
Mm.
right now and can't pivot, even though they're trying to pivot. The broligarchy, billionaires. Donald was at his rally just praising Elon Musk and bragging about how he's going to get $45 million a week. Oops, that was 3 years ago, Danielle. What's happening now?
So this is so funny to me. It tickles me to death. Elon Musk, and it was going to be, I think, $45 million a
A
month,
month, excuse
right?
me, thank you.
That he was gonna do. I mean, he's rich, but I think that would
Not
bring
too, he's
more.
like, that's a little
Like,
too much
I
there,
don't think
Elon.
it was gonna do a week. But he had pledged that he was going to do $45 million a month to Trump in order to get him and MAGA over the finish line. Well, Elon Musk, as it was reported by Fortune magazine, has just rescinded that pledge of $45 million a month and said that he is not gonna just fall for a cult of personality. And I said, "Whoa!" How quickly the tides change when now you have and you're starting to see the energy that Vice President Kamala Harris has, and maybe, just maybe, you recognize that the possibility of a Madam President is likely. And so now Elon Musk is like, what's his face? Simpson going back into the bushes after having said that he was going to do that pledge. And so, and Donald Trump, by the way, is trying to get reimbursed for the money that he's reimbursed
Uh,
for the money that he wasted on ads about Joe Biden. He wants his money back. And I'm like, from who?
yeah.
Who's going to write
Does
that
it
check
work
for
that
you,
way,
boo?
buddy? Does it work that way?
Doesn't
Look,
work that way.
some good news for us to end on is, and we should embrace the good news. We should embrace the joy. We should embrace the energy. It's been a very tough 4 years, including the pandemic. And we've all been seized in a permanent fight, flight, freeze mode. And I think what this week has allowed us to do, at least for the past 4 days, is catharsis, which is a word. It means release. And the English major hat, if I may wear it for a second, at the end of tragedies, they said, Aristotle said there's this for a tragedy to be a tragedy, you need to have these elements. One of the final elements was catharsis, where after the painful event, the audience is given something, Danielle, at the end, for us to just have a relief and a release, right? Like at the end of Romeo and Juliet, at least the families come together, and then everyone says, "Oh, that was tragic," but okay, at least there's something moving forward. So, I think this week is a moment of catharsis and release. It's a moment of laughter. It's a moment of joy. It's a moment of palpable excitement that we haven't felt in this country for years. I don't know if it'll last. I don't know how long it'll last, but I do know that if we can somehow, inshallah, harness this and mobilize this to November, she's going to win. She is going to win. And I think
100%.
we're going to change the trajectory and dynamic. It's not going to be perfect. I don't follow a cult of personality. I'm not kumbaya. I know how politics works, but I think it'll be something very different. And the fact that a Black Indian woman, a daughter of immigrants, could be the one to dismantle Trump, a white supremacist, will be so delicious. It'll be mirch, masala, achar, curry, everything. It'll be Jamaican jerk chicken, it'll be all of it. It'll be enchiladas. It'll be everything, right? And so it's one of those situations where the reason why I also want people to feel pretty good is I believe Donald has peaked. And what do I mean by that, real
Yes.
quickly?
Hmm.
In the past 5 years, which is the past week, he survived an assassination attempt. He did that photo. He had the diaper on his ear. They literally had the entire convention attacking Biden. They picked JD Vance, who's a dud. All the wind is gone. I think from here out to November, it's only going to be bad news for him. He has sentencing coming up in September. So it's up to us. I think we have the
Yep.
energy, and I think he's peaked. I think he has peaked. The question is, can we galvanize the majority? He's not going to give above 46%. And if we can get enough people in this multicultural coalition, we're going to win.
I believe that 100%. And I know that people that have been listening to us and listening to me for years now will be like, Danielle, what is that sound? Is that hopefulness? And dare I say, yes, I have not been this energized, this excited, this hopeful um, since 2008. I do believe that we have the coalitions, we have the numbers, we have the tenacity, we have the know how, we have the tactics in order to get this done. The way that we get this done is doing exactly what people have been doing over the last couple of days: organize, organize, organize. Everyone, your platforms. If you have money that you can give, you donate. If you have time that you can give, you volunteer. From now until November, 3.5 months, folks, we got this. That is it for us here on Democracy Ish. I'm Danielle Moody.
And I'm DEI hire Wajat Ali.
And we will be back next week, dear friends, if in fact we have a country left. Inshallah.